This week, we will be going over Chapter 9, Exercise 57, Length of Time to Sell a Home. So, the length of time to sell a home question says, according to the National Association of Realtors, it took an average of 3 weeks to sell a home in 2017. Data for the sale of 40 randomly selected homes sold in Greene County, Ohio in 2017 showed a sample mean of 3.6 weeks with a sample standard deviation of 2 weeks. Conduct a hypothesis test to determine whether the number of weeks until a house sold in Greene County differed from the national average in 2017. Use alpha equals 0.05 for the level of significance and state your conclusion. So what is given to us is the average, sample size, sample average, sample standard deviation, and alpha. What is asked for us is to conduct a hypothesis test to determine whether the number of weeks until a house sold in Greene County differed from the national average in 2017. The key here is to do a hypothesis test. So for step 1, we need to identify a null and alternate hypotheses. So given everything we know already, we need to figure out HO and HA. So the key word here in our little statement would be differed. So instead of being less than, greater than, more or less, the important word in this statement is differed, which means we are looking for something that either is the national average or isn't the national average. So we need mu equals and mu does not equal. So we always know that the equals statement is our null hypothesis and the unequal statement is our alternate hypothesis. So we know that the national average in 2017 was 3 weeks, so we have the null hypothesis mu equals 3 and the alternate hypothesis mu does not equal 3. Step 2 is to identify the test statistic. So we know, because they found a sample standard deviation, that we should use the t-test statistic. So we have all these values already. They were given to us in the problem. So all we need to do is plug them into the t equation and determine that our t-value is 1.8974. The next thing we need to do with this t-value would be to determine the p-value. So you can do this with either Excel or the t-table, but today I'm going to be doing the t-table. So for the t-table method, we need to calculate the degrees of freedom. So degrees of freedom can be found with n minus 1, and since we know n equals 40, we just do 40 minus 1, which means our degrees of freedom is 39. So we will be looking in this section of our table. So the next thing we need to do is find our t-value, which is 1.8974, in the t-table row of 39 degrees of freedom. Unfortunately, this value isn't explicitly stated in our table, which means that our p-value is somewhere in between 0.05 and 0.025. So p is greater than 0.025 but less than 0.05. This is important to remember for later. In determining step 4, do we reject or not reject the null hypothesis? So given everything that we found before and everything that was given, we need to figure out whether or not to accept the null hypothesis. We'll accept the null hypothesis if the p-value is less than alpha, but we will not accept the null hypothesis if the p-value is greater than or equal to alpha. We know that our alpha is 0.05 and our p-value is somewhere between 0.025 and 0.05, but important, it's not anywhere equal to 0.05, which means no matter what, it will be less. So we should accept our null hypothesis because p is less than alpha. What do we do once we figure out whether or not to accept the null hypothesis? We need to make a final statement. Our final statement can be written as It cannot be concluded that the number of weeks until a house sold in Greene County differed from the national average of 3 weeks in 2017, because our null hypothesis was accepted. Thank you.